My name is Felicity Colman. I'm a Professor of Media Arts in the United Kingdom, and I'm here to wish Vera Bühlmann and her team congratulations and best wishes on the occasion of the 2021 Lustrum, and hopefully more to come in the coming years. I'm here to very briefly mention one project that Vera has worked on since her tenure at ATTP, and one that's ongoing. It's a project that grew out of a few strands of inquiry and brought together a team of people concerned with the epistemology of information to begin with, and a question of the measurement of matter. And the members are here: Felicity Colman, that's myself, Vera, Aislinn O'Donnell, and Iris van der Tuin. And we produced a thing called the Ethics of Coding, a report on the Algorithmic Condition for the European Commission. You can download the full report on the ATTP website. What we did was we turned to look at contemporary systems of knowledge. We thought about information flows, and we thought about situation making. And this really centered around the idea of the algorithmic condition, the concept of code, and the question of ethics. This is quite a big question in terms of how the project grew. Today, we might group those things under a different set of terms. And I want to introduce the notion of codicity, not the least because the algorithmic condition is a condition that produces different categories or models of knowledge. In addition to giving rise to novel forms, it has led us to understand that we're engaging with a different sense of duration and a different kind of movement with which to think and to practice today. So codicity, to get to that point, is to understand what code is. And this is also where one of the things that we began with when looking at information systems for understanding algorithms. Code is part of the language of computer science. It's a technical form that we use to write with today. We communicate through code. It's a key for understanding everyday conditions. In this sense, we can understand the use of code as a way of measuring the informatics of matter of life itself. But this is in the computational sense, not in the biological sense of the genetic code that's written as an alphabet of nucleic acids. Code is a category or a model that writes the algorithmic condition. It communicates information about material objects, and it creates immaterial objects. So in that sense, we understand codicity. It's no longer just bare code, bare writing, but it has a distinctive character of a particular system. So we asked, what is the system that we work in today? Or rather, perhaps the question should be framed better: what is the condition that is producing different systems? The algorithmic condition is a paradigmatic characterization of the period in which the algorithms that we work with today have enabled the use of human-produced distributive organizations and human relations in terms of working with data in systems, changing the way that information is produced, analyzed, and used. And I think our position has been that the algorithmic condition itself has changed the way that the fundamental categorizations of life can be described and approached. So algorithms we can understand in terms of processes of calculation, processes of making things, of generating novel concepts of information, and in terms of their fallibilities as well, the glitches of information transmission, chaotic errors, and other mistakes that spring from the human designers. The algorithmic condition is one where masses of data are conglomerated into patterns for the purposes of organization, control, and abstraction of resources, both virtual and physical, conceptual and concrete. We can think of the condition as in terms of the governance of algorithmically organized digital systems and their data objects, patterns and sets that are made within the systems to generate particular forms of behaviors, functions, actions, and expressions of life. We also thought about the ways in which this condition itself produces different categories for life. It's generative of the informatics that distills things and makes them abstract. It's where data subjects themselves, like us, abstract themselves. It's where time becomes a condition of the code. It produces public situations and sites that are both physical and virtual, that are identifiable by their scale, the amount of information, the literal amount of code that is used to write those sites. And it's involving vernacular quantum movements that we can recognize through different measurement tools that override previous categories of physics, epistemology, and metaphysics. The ethics of coding research question started with how can we think adequately about the relation between knowledge and ethics in societies that are governed by algorithmic digital systems and objects, each endowed with agency. But perhaps that's not exactly the correct question today either. When we think about, we did think long and hard about the ethos of different disciplinary and infrastructural systems in terms of their ethics, as in framing of a system. Codicity is generative of different kinds of ethical considerations. This is quite a complex question. So our next steps, because the project is never finished, we're thinking from codicity to specificity, looking at the vernacular quantum moments, thinking more deeply about the algorithmic conditionals, thinking with new materialist genealogies and methods, thinking about the ethics of public coding in that sense of the public that is created, that is intensive, and thinking about quantum times. And perhaps some of you watching this might like to join with us in our next adventure. Happy Lustrum.